Hello? Is there anybody there? Is it Maxwell? Double check. Log into the computer and find out. Control. Alright. This is Maxwell Hershey. Well, I'm going to assume that this is the right classroom I'm supposed to be going to, Maxwell Hershey. And we should have two students there, Kevin Hancock and William Hancock.
Maxwell and Hershey?
Well, it's Maxwell / Hershey.
That's weird.
Is it? I
Like
they were-
Maxwell that way, Hershey's that way.
I don't really know, it just says that. It says MAXW/HSCH.
High school?
Maybe that's Maxwell High School, I don't know. Well, because there's no C in Hershey, right? So maybe it's just Maxwell High School. Why would they put a slash in between? Well, Maxwell, anyway, that's what it says. It says to go to Maxwell, and that's what we're at, Maxwell. I don't know, whatever. I can never remember where towns are around here. I'm terrible with the towns around here. Been here for almost 10 years, but still can't figure it out. I always mix up Valentine and
Broken Bow.
no. See, Valentine's up by the border. That's South Dakota, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a town down by Grant. Valentine and, oh, I always mix
Wallace?
up. No, just south of Grant. I don't remember, but anyway, I always mix them up, and I don't even know why I don't sound like it. I'm not very good at memorizing things, I can tell you that much. Memorizing is not my forte. Not sure what is my forte. Okay, so anyway, we're starting off in chapter 1 today, I believe, according to our schedule. If we go to the syllabus, you'll see that Monday the 31st, chapter 1. And we have some homework to do in chapter 1 as well. And then we'll spend a couple days on chapter 2 the rest of this week. And then we'll move on to chapter 3 next week, and then we'll have an exam at the end of next week. So 2 weeks, 3 chapters, and an exam. And after we're done with that, we're going to get into our first project. So let's take a look at chapter 1. And I will pretty much just try to go through the book and make sure that I cover as many of the topics as they talk about, so that you know what to expect, you know what to do when you're doing your homework. But I will do a lot of things on the internet, on the computer as well, so that we can get a lot of other knowledge in our toolbox of knowledge. Let's see here. Okay, so anyway, let's give ourselves a search page here, which we're gonna. Oh, the U.S. Open starts today. That'd be exciting. So we're starting off in chapter 1. Essentially, this is about preparing to be an engineer. That's the title of the chapter. And there are a lot of things that are recommended when you're preparing to be an engineer. First of all, understanding kind of what you're getting into. And that's why the first section is called, What Have I Done? Right? There are so many different facets to engineering, and there's so much that you must do to accomplish your goals in engineering, as far as your education goes and preparation, all of these things. But what we're going to do is give you some basic ideas of what you should do to start off, and then we're going to hit you with the big bag of bricks. Okay? The big bag of bricks being engineering is difficult. I'm going to start off here I'm actually starting off in Google, because I think it's a very useful place to go, often not just because they have cool animated Google tennis games, but because there's just a lot of resources. And so we look at our very first section here, and it says, it's on page 2, 1.1.1, you must develop basic living skills. So let's just type that in. I want to learn more about what are living skills. Okay? And you're going to bring up a lot of different things here: independent living skills, life skills inventory. This one's at Indiana State, Indiana State University. This is at Independent Lifestyles. This is at some .org place. I mean, there's lots of things you could learn about, places you could learn about living skills, right? Let's just take a look at one. I like this one. Kind of looks interesting to me, a life skills inventory. Let's see if it's any good. We hope, since it's at a university, they're trying to do their best job at making things that make sense. So it says right here, in order to accurately complete the IL assessment, which is the independent living assessment, I guess, involve youth, children administration, social worker, foster parent. Okay, so this is obviously written for somebody who's probably going through a little bit of a childhood crisis. Maybe they're foster parents or with social workers. So they're going to have some struggles. And it looks like up here we have scoring should be based on the lowest level of completion. That's fine. Completed categories, time frames. Okay, so they're just giving some instructions on how to do this. But let's look at the things that they want us to do, the things that we want to be able to do if we're going to try to be independent livers or have some living skills. Money management, consumer awareness. This is extremely important as you're going into college and starting your degree, starting your experience as an engineering student. Right? Food management. Why is food management such an important thing? Well, if you're not taking care of your food, you're definitely not going to be able to take care of yourself. And so it's part of staying healthy. Right? Money management, you're buying your food, you're paying for your apartment, you're paying for tuition, whatever you're doing. You're also saving money and you're earning money. But food management is very basic. Personal appearance and hygiene. A lot of college students just show up to school in sweats, not combing their hair, whatever. But hygiene is a different deal. Hygiene not only is a health issue, but it's also a social issue. And if you want to succeed in college, you need to have some social abilities and some social opportunities, because that will give you opportunities to learn with your peers. Health, of course, has been covered in 2 of these topics and is its own thing. You need to make sure that you're staying healthy when you're not healthy to take care of that. Get to a professional or do what you need to do. Housekeeping, housing, transportation. I mean, there's so many different things here. You can just go on and on and on. Interpersonal skills, extremely important when you're dealing with students who are going to need help from other students, who are going to be working with other students, working with professors, working with instructors, working with lab assistants, working with whoever. You need to have interpersonal skills. So this, obviously they're going into some good stuff here. And here they're going to have some different things that we're going to want to do, want to understand, and want to develop as we're learning these basic life skills. Knowing the value of coins and currency. Seems kind of basic, fundamental, even ridiculous maybe, but there are actually a lot of people who do not really understand the value of money. They understand how to buy things with money, but they don't understand, for example, they don't understand that $100 is not chump change. They don't understand that $100 is valuable. Some people will have a $100 bill and a $10 bill, and they don't make any difference, that it's just to spend. They realize that $100 is more than 10, but they don't realize what they could do with $100 that's very important. For example, buying groceries, paying rent. To them, it's just money in their wallet. So many people treat money this way, and that's why so many people in the United States are in extreme debt. Most of the people in the United States are in debt, in more debt than they can pay off. And that's kind of sad, because you'll never get anywhere if you're in debt. If you're in debt, it's like you're in slavery. There's no difference between really slavery and debt. So anyway, very simple things here, and I would recommend that we maybe, in fact, I think I maybe will, let's see, how could we make this into an assignment if we wanted to make it into an assignment? No, I don't think we could make it into an assignment. Not right now, I'd have to think about it some more. But I would recommend going through this and maybe writing some things down, and if there's things that you have questions about, maybe exploring this a little bit. If you've never cooked for yourself, you should maybe try it. Very simple at first, try some macaroni and cheese or something like that, something that has some multiple instructions, not just boil the water and pour it in, but you have to mix things and add some other ingredients. If you've never shopped for yourself, do it, try it out. Because you're at this point in your life where you're going to be going off into the world and be responsible for yourself. And if you think you can just live off of, I'm going to stop by Qdoba and spend $10 for lunch, I can't even afford that, and I guarantee you, about 10 times what anybody makes that I'm teaching. And maybe more, maybe a lot more than 10 times what most of the people I'm teaching make. And I can't afford to eat out even more than once or twice in a week. And even then, it's just me and my wife. I take my whole family, and it just tanks me. Because of the responsibilities that I have to pay for lots of different things. And if you don't know that, you're almost guaranteed to fail at life. If you fail in economics, you're guaranteed to fail in life. But there are lots of other things here that are also included. And some things are a little more relevant for some people, and some things a little bit less relevant for people. But you must develop life skills. And you must develop as many of them as possible. Any opportunity that you get to do something for yourself that you have not done before, do it. Become self-sufficient. Learn how to take care of yourself and learn how to take care of others. It's important to go out and serve others as well, because as an engineer, that's what you're going to spend your life doing, is doing things for other people. So you need to learn how to do that as well. So this is a really great resource. I'm going to hang on to that because I really like it. But there are many others out there as well. Number 1.1.1, develop basic living skills. Some other things that I might mention while we're on the topic. I would recommend learning how to do your laundry. Cleaning your room on your own without being told. If you're living in the dorms, go clean your room. Keep it clean. Learn to organize yourself, because there's nothing quite as embarrassing as being a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old person and living in filth. Because, somebody comes over to visit, let's say you're dating or something and you're in your 20s and you bring a girlfriend over to your house and it's filth, and there's nothing that turns off a girl faster than a boy that can't take care of himself, or vice versa. It turns off a guy as well. If you go into a girl's apartment, it's just filth and grime. It's almost like it's a relationship killer. And it's the same in your professional life. So trust me, I'm a very cluttery person. And I'm trying to learn to be less cluttered because it's better for my professional life. So, number 1.1.2. You must overcome defeats and obstacles more on your own. That's a huge part of the life skills. It's an extension of the life skills. And so are many of these others. So you got to learn to figure things out and succeed without having somebody hold your hand or do it for you. Managing your time. Managing your money. So that means budgeting. Okay? So when I was in high school and starting college, I started off with my budgeting, or my money system was pretty simple. I would put money into my savings account. I didn't even have a checking account. And I would just spend money until it was all gone. And when it was gone, I would stop spending money because it was gone. And that worked really well for about a year, maybe two. But then I started to realize that at the end of semesters in college, I couldn't pay for things that I needed to pay for, like tuition for the next semester, because I wasn't budgeting my money. I wasn't saving money for the future. I wasn't keeping track of what I spent. I just spent what I wanted to spend until I didn't have any more to spend. Another thing you can use Google for. There are lots of places that you can go to learn about budgeting. One of my favorite ones is Feed the Pig. You ever seen the commercials for that? Right? Feedthepig.org. It's a great website with lots of things that you can get from it. Lots of tools that you can get. Managing your money here would be the good one here. Getting started, right? So I would get started with learning how to budget. And here they have some kind of rules about budgeting, but then they're going to have tools as well. Let's see here, creating a budget, going down here. So how do you create a budget? Essentially, a budget is a list of things that you're going to spend your money on and how much you're going to spend. And then you try to match that to the amount of money that you're bringing in. And if it doesn't match, then you have to lower your budget or raise your income, one of the two, until they match. And when they finally match, then you follow that plan. Every time you spend something, you record it and you show that you're following that plan. And here they talk about being realistic, being logical, making a good plan that involves wants and needs and knowing the difference between them. But they don't actually show how to do it here, and they should. Let's see. Tracking your budget, just toolbox. Let's go to the toolbox. Other resources. On the web, taxes, money. Well, anyway, there are lots of ways to do it. So if we go back to Google, I don't want to still search for it here. But if I go back to Google and I look for budget worksheet, for example, you can find lots of these on here. There are many apps and programs you can use for budgeting. But when you're first budgeting, I would actually recommend doing it on paper first because it's much simpler. It'll help you to understand things a little bit better. Here's one from moneyfunk.net, right? So if we go and look at this here, you can see that we've got categories. Income here is the money coming in, essentially. The income from your job, other income. And then financial accounts. We have a student loan payment account. So essentially these are all things that are charging us interest, in other words. And that's really important. Or either charging us or paying us interest. So, and I actually like to separate the ones that are charging me interest from the ones that are paying me interest because it's like the good guys and the bad guys. The ones that are paying you interest are the good guys. The ones that are charging you interest are the bad guys. So student loan repayment, credit card bill, those are ones that are charging interest. And you want to have as few of those as possible because paying interest is, again, kind of like being a slave. Interest doesn't do anything but line the pockets of the people that loaned you the money. It doesn't go towards saving the world or anything else. It's just paying money for the privilege of spending money. And why would you pay money for the privilege of spending money when you can spend your own money instead of somebody else's money? So try not to have try to have as few of those as possible. I don't have a credit card, for example. My wife nor I have credit cards. And people say, well, how do you get good credit without a credit card? Believe me, my credit's better than yours. It's better than anyone's that I've ever met. And I don't have a credit card. I've never met somebody with a credit card with a credit that's nearly perfect, and that's what mine is. You don't need a credit card to do that. If you are living in a place and paying rent and keeping up on your bills and your credit report is not everything. Also, there's the big number in the credit report. One of the things that's really important in a credit report is the amount of money that you have compared to the amount of debt you have, and that's called a debt to something ratio. I can't remember. But that's the most important thing that they look at. If you have much more money than you have loaned out, or that you're paying off, they don't really care what your credit rating is. They know that you've got the money to pay the bill if you're going to buy a house, for example. But honestly, the only thing that's really worth buying on credit is a house. Everything else is kind of iffy. A car is not worth buying on credit. Certainly not clothing or anything else. And I mean, really, the only thing you want to buy on credit is something that's going to increase in value. And anything that decreases in value is just like throwing money away if you buy it on credit. So why would you borrow money to buy something that's going to decrease in value? All cars decrease in value. Doesn't matter what they are. The most expensive, most rare car in the world, on average, decreases in value over time no matter what. And it's the same with every single thing except for real estate. Real estate is the only thing that does not decrease in value over time on average. And so I would recommend staying away from as many purchases and stay away from credit as much as possible, especially while you're young, because when you're young, people think, well, I'm young, I can't afford things, I should use a credit card, but it's exactly the opposite. You should be thinking, I'm young, I can't afford to be in debt, because if you get in debt when you're young, you will very likely stay in debt forever. It's extremely difficult to get out of debt when you're young. It's much easier to get out of it when you're old and you're making a lot of money. It makes much more sense to go into debt when you're old, to take some chances because you've got a lot of money that's coming in and you've probably saved a lot of money. Be patient and save your money and budget your money and wait a month or two to buy that thing that you want now. And you won't struggle. You won't struggle to pay tuition. You won't drop out of school because you can't pay for tuition or fees. I mean, that happens to so many people and it ruins their lives because they just decided they needed more things than they actually did. And they needed them new and they needed them now. And it can ruin your engineering career as well. If you do that with the money from your business, you can tank your business or you can get in trouble with your boss or whatever else. So budgeting is extremely important. Learning to control yourself with your money. For a long time, I had a hard time with money, and so I just stopped carrying any kind of money. I didn't carry a credit card, I didn't carry a debit card, I didn't carry a bank card, I didn't carry cash. I didn't even carry a wallet for a long time. The only time I ever carried money is if I was carrying it to buy a specific thing, and I just let my wife handle all the money because I had a hard time spending it. And a lot of people think that's not manly if you can't spend your own money or whatever. No, it's actually very manly because now I don't have to worry about making ends meet at the end of the month. We always have enough money and we're saving quite a bit and we've paid everything off, and the only thing that we really have kicking around is our house payment, and it's a much better place to live than the end of every month trying to pull your hair out trying to find money to pay for meals. So I would highly recommend going and studying these things, getting involved in your personal life with these things, because you will not be organized professionally unless you're organized personally. It just doesn't happen. You are going to be the same person professionally as you are personally. Okay, so that's a big one that I like to really emphasize a lot, and we'll take some time to practice some of this stuff in the homework. Getting along with people is another thing that I struggle with, particularly if I'm dealing with people that I think are not very good at making good decisions professionally. In education, there are a lot of people that work in education that make decisions based on things other than education, based on money, based on furthering their careers, based on politics, based on ill-advised policies. There's so many decisions that are made by politicians in education that are ridiculous. And I get really angry about those things, especially because I'm an educator. And I have a really hard time dealing with people that make those kind of decisions, support those kind of decisions. And I have a hard time treating them kindly. I have a hard time not being disdainful and just downright disrespectful in many cases. And it's hurt me professionally because those kinds of people can be vindictive as well. If they think that you've insulted them and insulted their ideas and insulted whatever because of the dumb ideas they brought up, then they will strike back at you any chance they get, and maybe for years and years and years. And I've had experiences with that just recently, where people have been essentially just trying to crush me down because I made them look dumb. Well, they made themselves look dumb, really, in front of other people. So it happens, and you have to learn to curtail those things. You have to learn to get along with people, even if people are annoying or obnoxious or stupid. It happens all the time in the real world. And sometimes you're going to be on the obnoxious, dumb, and stupid side. It happens. And so you have to be able to treat people kindly, and hopefully people will treat you kindly back. Again, something that I struggle with from time to time. I think everyone does in some way or another. So of course you need to stay healthy, and that seems like a no-brainer. So this takes us all the way to section 1.1.6, staying healthy. But believe it or not, most young people struggle with it, and many older people, most Americans actually struggle with staying healthy. We say that we really value our health, and so we get a health care plan that covers everybody in the nation, but we still have a huge smoking problem in the United States. We still have a huge overeating problem in the United States. We still, when we're just snacky or bored or nervous, we eat things like candy bars instead of an apple, The United States, people of the United States are extremely unhealthy people. And we have a fairly long lifespan, but that's not because of our health. That's not because of preventative measures we take to stay healthy. It's because of intervention that we do after we're sick. We have a really good intervention medical program that allows us to fix health problems, but we don't really take care of ourselves and stay healthy. We should be living to be in the 90s. We're only living to be in the late 70s and 80s in the United States. We should be well into the 90s, but we're not. Only the ones that are healthy get into their 90s usually. So stay healthy. It's not only good for your future, but it's good for your present. It'll allow you to have more energy. Exercising is extremely important. It's something that we have a tendency to kind of forget about while we're in our 20s for the most part. We get through our 20s and maybe we find a girlfriend that we're going to marry, or we do marry, and we just figure, oh, I'm done being young and fit, and I'm just going to start working on my belly, And I'm as guilty as the next person. I struggle with that as well. I struggle with lots of things. But as Americans, we just tend to be this way. We shouldn't. We should not eat for the sake of eating. We should not eat for boredom. We should not be going out on drinking binges. We should not be smoking incessantly. Even these things like energy drinks and endless amounts of coffee and caffeinated drinks are driving our health into the ground. We're becoming so dependent on things that we put in our body to keep us going, things that we put in our body to keep us awake, and things that we put in our body just because we're bored, that we can't stay healthy as a people. And the students, you can see it in the students. Students fall asleep in class all the time because they drink 4 energy drinks to stay awake all night, and they can't stay awake during the day anymore. The caffeine eventually has a limit. And students, the highest rate of students killing themselves in school because of the stress, because they're not keeping themselves healthy. And it's not just physical health. Food eaten for enjoyment is good for mental health. Food eaten in moderation and healthy food eaten is good for mental and emotional health. Exercise done is not just done for keeping yourself skinny or keeping your heart good. It's also done as a release. It releases tension from the body. Sleep is not just because you're tired. Sleep is a time for your brain to shut down, and it must shut down. If your brain doesn't shut down, you go into this overstimulated state. And most people that end up with mental problems that are stress related and other things like that have this condition where they cannot sleep because they've gotten into a cycle where their brain is overstimulated, and they just don't ever get to sleep. They never shut their brain down, and it never gets to rest. It never gets to relax. And your brain actually dumps things when it relaxes. When it sleeps, your brain forgets things, it erases things, it essentially dumps out unnecessary garbage. And your brain only has a certain limit of stuff it can hold. And so if you're trying to learn, you better get some sleep. All right? So these things are extremely important. They seem like no-brainers, but if you don't do these things, you will definitely be a no-brainer. Your brain and your body have to be healthy together. Without them both working in concert, you're really going to be struggling. Why do we say all of this? We say all of this because of section 1.2, entitled The Classroom. Okay? If you go to high school and take classes there, you've all been there, you know what it's like. It's, it's sometimes a little bit challenging, sometimes not challenging, sometimes not at all challenging. A lot of hand-holding, a lot of the teachers guiding you through things, giving you extra chances, extra credit, guiding you through life, guiding you through the homework, guiding you through this, guiding you through that. It's very much an environment where the students are not necessarily on their own, even though they feel like they're growing up, they're still not quite there. And if you're in high school right now, you will see a difference, for sure, in the future. Some teachers in high school they'll let their students go a little bit more. Some of them will hold their hands a little bit more. But there's still a lot of that going on. And even in college, even at UNL, for example, I knew a student that went there just a couple of years ago, and she came back after her first semester and she said, you know what, UNL is no different than high school. The classes were pretty easy, and the homework wasn't that big a deal, and it was just like high school, except I went home to a dorm every night and hung out with my friends a lot more because I didn't have any chores at home and stuff like this. And sometimes that is the case. Her major was journalism. And I would say that journalism in most schools is probably that way. It's not very challenging necessarily as far as the material that you're going to study. There's not concepts that you really have to grasp, especially in your freshman year, that are really unattainable. Most of them are pretty straightforward and basic ideas that you're just going to be working on skills with. Engineering will not be this way. I can guarantee it. Because as engineering students, you will start in your very first class, in your very first semester, in some of the hardest classes at the school. Because you will be taking my first class, my very first day, in the very first period of the day, was a 300 level math class. I was in there with a couple of other engineering students who were freshmen, actually just one other freshman in the class, and a whole bunch of juniors and senior math students. And so that's not abnormal. It's normal for engineering students to get to the university and be taking courses that are well beyond their time, well beyond their age, well beyond what most people will ever even consider taking, because their majors don't require them. They're very difficult. It was a very difficult class. I failed it. And I was a pretty good math. I knew math fairly well, and I still failed it, mostly because I hadn't got my life in order. So it's challenging as an engineering student. Your very first classes in physics, in science, will be physics or chemistry. And physics and chemistry classes in their freshman year are designed to fail students. If you go to a university, they're literally going to fail 50% of the students. It's just that way. And they say, well, that's not fair to just plan on failing students. They don't even have to plan it. It just happens naturally. They're very difficult classes that cover a lot of challenging material, and each chapter more challenging than the last. And by the middle of the year, half the students has essentially given up and failed out. It's not that they weren't capable of doing it. It's just that it's such hard work and they require you to do so much that they just give up. And that's how they get rid of half the engineering students and half the science students in the first year of university. They just get it's just the Darwin theory, they're just selected out of the programs. It happened, you'll meet people on university campuses all the time. What's your major? Engineering. Next semester. What's your major? Math. Because math is easy compared to engineering. And math isn't easy. So it happens all the time. And I'm not saying this to discourage you. I'm saying this to prepare you. I want you to succeed, and the way to succeed is to learn how to work hard, to put your life together so that you are a successful student from the get-go. And you're not struggling just because you got blindsided by this world that you just didn't know existed. All of your friends will be going out every night of the week, doing stuff, drinking, playing, going to sports events and other things. And you and your fellow engineering students who are going to make it, the ones who are going to survive the engineering department, are going to be doing homework. And you will not have a social life very much. It's just the way it is. I've never met an engineer with a social life unless they were married. The only ones I've known that have social lives are the ones that get married, and usually they get married to an engineer or someone else that has a degree like that so they can study together. For the most part, they just kind of forego a social life. They try to get a social life a little bit on weekends sometimes and over the summers, but I mean it's kind of tough. They don't get as much social time as other students. They still do get to date from time to time. Just they're not out playing around a lot. They're not out drinking all the time. They're not out doing the stuff that everybody else is doing, that everybody else thinks college is all about. Pizza and beer on the weekends or whatever. They just don't have time for it. On the other hand, when they get into graduate school, they have a tendency to make up for it. Because they end up having more time in graduate school, and they end up having a lot more money because you get paid to go to graduate school as an engineer. So, yes, that is very true. Does that surprise you? I have never met an engineering student or a physics student or even a chemistry student, graduate student, who was not paid to go to school. Not only was their tuition paid for, but they were paid somewhere between $10,000 and $30,000 a year to go. And that meant that they had to work in the department, either grading or teaching or doing research or a combination of those things. And usually they had to work somewhere between 20 and 50 hours a week in addition to their homework, but they were also given an office so that they were just living there all the time. And but still they were getting paid. I was getting paid $20,000 a year or so, and my tuition was paid for, and so I mean it was just normal. It's just the way it is. The professors need graduate students to help them with their work, help them with their workloads, and they hire them to do that. So, some places pay a lot more than others, but 20,000 is probably about average. And if you get up into the 30,000 range, you're probably at a really good school. Nebraska is right around the 20,000 range, I would guess, for most departments. Is somebody there in Maxwell? No? Not yet. We can hear somebody there. So, anyway, that's one of the reasons we go through all these things, and you kind of have to listen to me talk about these things, is that's one of the biggest reasons, is that so many students get blindsided by this first year of engineering. So many students fail out, so many students give up and go on to do something else. So if it is so hard, if it is such a challenge, then why do we do it? I'm going to go ahead and close the Maxwell classroom here because it doesn't seem like it's really helping us much anyway. So anyway, so many people struggle, so many people fail, so many people give up. And I don't want to discourage students. I want them to be prepared for that. It's mostly about hard work. I can tell you honestly that I am not the brightest person I've ever met. I was certainly not the brightest person in my classes freshman year. But where many people who were even smarter than I was, much smarter than I was in many cases, gave up, failed out, got frustrated, I didn't. I knew what to expect. I grew up in a family of physicists and engineers. I knew that it was going to be extremely painful and difficult, and so I just accepted it. And when I struggled with that math class I was telling you about and I failed out of it, I just said, well, I'll just come back and do it again. And I did the same thing with chemistry. I had a really bad year in chemistry, and Again, it wasn't really, it was a hard class. It wasn't a hard material necessarily. I just wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't prepared to keep track of all my work and make sure I was getting things done on time, and I fell behind and ended up just tanking the class. And so I just came back and did chemistry again. And that's not uncommon. It's not really looked down on. There are very few people in the engineering department who will not fail a class. Very few people. It just happens. And after a while, when you go through all these really tough classes, you start to look forward to taking general education courses. You start to look forward to, I've got to take an English class. I'm so excited. I can go out of the engineering building for a couple of hours, and I can go meet some girls, because there's hardly any girls in the engineering department, and I can go relax a little bit, because even though I know I have to work to get my English class done, I have to get my English homework done, it doesn't pound my brain like my engineering courses or my math courses or my physics courses. And it's actually kind of relaxing to go and study something that's interesting in a very different way and not squeezing the blood out of your veins every time you do it. So it's a very it's an interesting way to go through school, I think, because it's almost like, in fact, it is like you're on a different planet from the rest of the university. There's like the engineering department and the physics department, which is usually a little bit kind of like them and next to them and get along with them really well. And then there's pretty much everybody else on campus who's living in a different universe. And it's like they live in a bubble, or you live in a bubble or something, but there's this weird separation between them. And it's a very real thing. It's kind of weird. But so why would we do this? Why would we do this to ourselves? Well, the real reason is, coming up here in section 1.3. I love how they're doing this in 1.2 they call it, it's not Kansas. The classroom is not Kansas anymore, or there's not Kansas either. And 1.3 is called the Emerald City. Why are we doing this? What are we trying to get to? Well, some people are doing this because they think they need to, or they should. And they address that. They address the fact that engineers often encourage their kids to be engineers, and so on. Or people think you can't succeed unless you become an engineer or something like this. People encourage people to go into different things, and that's not bad necessarily. But you should, if you're going towards an engineering degree, you should be doing it because you want to do it. Engineering is an exciting career with lots of possibilities, and if you're excited about it, then that's the best of all worlds. But even though it's an exciting career, if you're not excited about it, it's not something that interests you, it's probably not going to be as exciting as it should be. And that's true of everything. It really is true of everything. I've never understood why people become dentists. But after talking to dentists, I've discovered it. I don't think I've ever met a dentist who got up one day in their life and said, I really love putting my fingers in people's open mouths and looking down their throats. I've never met somebody like that. Almost every dentist I've ever met went into dentistry for two reasons. Really great hours and really great pay. They can pick their hours because almost every dentist works for themselves. They can pick their days off because almost every dentist works a 3 or 4 day week. And they make really good money for the time they put in to their work every day. And so they have options to do things with their family or to do their own hobbies and whatever else. And that's the reason that I've never met a dentist who didn't have those reasons for becoming a dentist. All the dentists I've met have really expensive hobbies, and they had them before they ever became dentists, and they needed to support them, and that's fine. And they really just didn't want to spend a lot of time working every week, and that's fine too. If you want to stick your fingers in people's mouths to do that, more power to you. It needs to be done. But I couldn't do it because I don't have that much of an interest in expensive hobbies. That would not really excite me that much. Buying things has never really been a thing never really been something that I enjoy. I don't enjoy shopping at all, so that's not going to entice me. And I don't mind coming to work to a job that I enjoy. And that would explain why I'm a teacher. I don't get paid much at all, and I work a lot. But anyway, the point being is you should do something that excites you if you're in college. If you're not doing that, and you don't have a reason for doing what you're doing, then maybe you ought to rethink it. But in the end, engineering is an extremely rewarding and exciting career for those who go into it with the right mindset. The last section here that is all about it's not Alice in Wonderland, it's Dorothy. What's that story called? The Wizard of Oz, right? The Yellow Brick Road, section 1.4, they talk about the Yellow Brick Road. What's that all about? Well, of course, the Yellow Brick Road is the path to through your career, through your education and all these things. And I love that this book uses cartoons. They use cartoons from Zitz and from Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin and Hobbes is my favorite cartoonist, my favorite cartoon of all time, my favorite newspaper cartoon. And Bill Watterson was just a genius. And so I would recommend just going and reading some of these cartoons. If you're not familiar with Calvin and Hobbes, you should read them. You should read those works. They've all been published to books now, and they're fantastic. But the Yellow Brick Road is the path to success, really. And they're going to go into a little bit more detail about some of the things we talked about before with life skills. For example, they're going to talk about study skills. And it's something you should develop in high school. It is my opinion that high school is designed to teach kids how to learn. I don't think you really learn that much in high school, especially if you're not taking some of the more advanced courses in high school. But, I mean, as far as concepts and things like this, but the one thing that you can really learn is how to make sure you're getting your homework done every day. How to study, how to listen to a lecture and take notes that are effective. You can learn how to be a student, learn how to study, learn how to learn in high school. And the reason I say that is because I didn't do anything in high school. I didn't need to. High school was easy for me, and I just kind of showed up and screwed around and showed up for exams and failed the homework and aced the exams and got okay grades and walked out with barely a 2.9 GPA. I had really good test scores and got into a great university that's a top 50 university in the nation, and went to my first classes and bombed because I had never learned how to learn. And when you get into the university, they won't wait up for you. They won't teach you how to take notes. They won't hand you a handout and have you fill it out. You're going to have to learn these things on your own. Go to class, first of all. Don't skip. It's very tempting to skip class because most of your teachers in college won't take any kind of role. They don't care. And whatever, just it's your job to get there, so get there. And be prepared when you get there. Don't just show up after not having done anything. Read the section of the book that you're going to study. Read ahead. Read additional materials. Reading is extremely important, and you need to be good at it. You need to get good at it. But do your homework. Ask questions. All kinds of things. Take good notes, they mention on page 10. What are good notes? Don't just take notes. Don't just write down everything you can hear. My favorite thing to do when I'm listening to somebody is to just have a blank sheet of paper, or maybe if they're teaching from a book, to just have the textbook in front of them. And while they are talking, if something really hits me that I either don't understand or that really makes sense to me, or I want to learn more about, then I write something down. Just a little quick note and say, this is interesting, make a big circle of something in the book or highlight it really quick. I'm not a big fan of highlighting because people have a tendency to take too much time to highlight things, so I just like to circle things. It's much faster. And take a quick note in the margin. Most textbooks have lots of room for that kind of thing. And I would recommend not worrying about selling your textbook back if they won't take it back with writing in it. Sometimes that means you're paying a little extra for school, but those textbooks, especially in your math and your science courses, your engineering courses, are going to be good references, and you're going to need them for the future. This textbook, maybe not so much because it doesn't have a lot of information about engineering in specific. It just has information on basic engineering fundamental stuff. But especially as you get into your harder classes, you're going to want to keep your textbooks. So you might as well just write on them as much as you can. And just take your notes right there. Because when you come back to look at things, then you don't have to compare notes with textbook or find where their notes are in the textbook. But I would recommend taking efficient and effective notes rather than lots of notes. Another good tool that you can use is to record your lectures. Some people like to do that, and then they play them again when they don't understand something. If that works for you, do it. You've got the tools, your smartphone can do that and everything else. Your smartphone is a really good resource. You can take pictures of things really quick so that you can keep like a file of pictures of things out of books, things in class, things out of your homework, and you can keep those for reference later. Lots of different ways to do that. The last two things here that they say, work many problems and use repetition again. There is nothing more valuable to the human brain than repeating. If you don't understand something, repeat it when you read it. If you don't understand something when you're doing it, repeat it. Do it again and again and again and again. Okay? They go on to talk about lots of other things as well, scheduling things, scheduling your entire 4-year education, lots of other things. Teamwork is a huge one. Find people that you can work together and do your homework together with people. Do it in every class, especially your hard classes. And these things and many other things can lead to success as an engineering student. And I just can't emphasize those things enough. I mean, there's just so much that you can do to succeed. We'll cut off this class at this point, and next time we'll actually start with the engineering design process in chapter 2. So we're going to learn about the different fields of engineering at first, and then we'll learn about different important concepts for the engineering design process. We'll get started on this whole design idea. Have a good day. We'll see you Wednesday.